What would you like to see from the incoming chief executive?
Yeah, in fact, first of all, thanks very much for having me on this program. Well, in fact, for the new CE, we have got quite a long wish list. And on the COVID policy, the travel policy is probably, for the time being, top of our list. Because in the past year or so, we have been seeing a mass exodus of talent from Hong Kong, including from the financial service industry, the fund management industry. And we think that this is an area that the government should attach a lot of importance. And as to what we think the new government should be doing is that in a more immediate term, we hope that the government can allow home quarantine if the living situation permits. And then also shorten the quarantine period gradually, starting from 7 to 3 days and gradually phase that out. And also, for example, on the flight-specific suspension, even though the government has relaxed the requirements, we think that that is still not sufficient because this mechanism is a very blunt tool and it will just disrupt any people who want to plan travel. So we want to scrap this altogether because ultimately, the passengers are only at the receiving end. There's really nothing we can do. So why penalize the passengers? The focus should be on the top end, the airlines, the passengers who fly in. So the onus should be on them rather than on the other passengers. So I think these are more the short term. But more fundamentally, I think there should be a revisit of the whole COVID policy. We understand the government is trying to strike a delicate balance between two sort of different objectives. Because on one hand, there is a very large cohort within the local community that want quarantine-free travel with the mainland as soon as possible. And of course, our members attach a lot of importance to having quarantine travel back to the mainland because it's something that is very dear to our heart. But at the same time, don't forget Hong Kong is an international city, the IFC.
Right.
To be true to the label, we need to ensure that the international link is also up in motion and full functioning.
So, have you spoken to John Lee yet? Has your team reached out?
Yeah, not yet. We haven't got the opportunity, but we will try to. And in the past few months, in fact, we have been in close dialogue with the securities and the banking regulators, as well as FSTB. And we are very grateful that our regulators, they are not only top-notch professionally, but also very empathetic, as well as engaging, and understand the challenges faced by the industry. And we'll definitely continue the dialogue with the regulators as well as the senior leaders in Hong Kong.
Is the market opportunity presented by the Greater Bay Area enough to outweigh the closing of international borders with the quarantine? And if there was a choice, is it more important to drop quarantine for China or to drop quarantine internationally?
Yeah, I think we have always been sort of boxed in this discussion that we have to be sequential and mutually exclusive. But we would like to approach it from a more pragmatic angle, is that what can we do? What would be within our ability to control and do something? Because as the leaders have said that, the discussion with the mainland authorities will probably take time. So in the meantime, instead of staying in limbo, should we start to do something more on the international front? And on this, I think we can take reference from other countries' examples as to how to manage the risk. Because currently, our focus is more looking at the metrics, like, say, the number of caseloads. But are there other metrics that are more relevant or material? What are the key risks that we try to address? And your question about Greater Bay Area, in fact, this is something that there's a reason why we want to open the international border, is that there are a lot that Hong Kong has, very unique to Hong Kong, that is given by the central government. The Greater Bay Area, the Wealth Management Connect, like, say, the ETF Connect and the MRF, these are all just unique to Hong Kong, only Hong Kong enjoy. And we want to go out to explain to the world that there are opportunities, a lot of opportunities that Hong Kong has. And we want talents to come to Hong Kong to enjoy, to build Hong Kong.
To your point, just quickly, tell us a little bit about the talent, because we have seen, of course, the talent exodus. Is that going to be a problem? Can you recover in a year or two if that reopens? reopening happens?
Yeah, definitely. Because the opportunities are there. A lot of opportunities that are unique to Hong Kong, which I've just alluded to, is that we want talent, not just from Hong Kong, but from the international world in terms of want a diversity, which Hong Kong always has. That builds Hong Kong into an IFC. We want diversity in terms of gender, nationality, expertise. And we want them to come in. And in the past few months, a key concern is that we see a lot of not just permanent relocations, but temporary one. And these temporary, 3 months, 6 months, and we don't want them to turn from temporary to permanent. And the longer we stay in this sort of restrictive and uncertain mode, the more likely people will turn it into permanent. And that's the reason why we think there's an urgency for the government to really give a very clear message that we are moving ahead to open up. We are not backpedaling.
Right.
For example, the recent press release issued by the government in June, talking about that if the confirmed cases or close contacts have to be put into, like say, the central government facilities, that's not really helping. So we want clarity, moving in that direction, and stay
Right.
the course.